Oh, to the window, by the window.
Hello everybody, my name's Tanya the Ghoul. Welcome to my first ever video essay, and today's topic I will be talking about the Fallout TV show and why it's a bad adaptation. Now to get started, I just want to say that I am a massive Fallout fan, and I've been playing since 2016. And although I started off with the Bethesda titles, I learned about the non-Bethesda titles, and I learned about the deep lore, history, world building, darker tones and themes, and what made them so special in the first place. And ever since I learned about that, I never turned back. And I hope with this video, I can help people see what I saw in the older non-Bethesda games. I would also like to stress that I am not trying to be a gatekeeper. I don't hate Fallout. I love the games to death. I am not trying to be a bully. I'm not trying to scare you into not liking the franchise anymore. I am simply just sharing my thoughts and opinions as well as grounded facts on why the acquisition of the Fallout IP from Bethesda was a bad idea, and how a lot of old-time fans are not happy with the direction that Bethesda is pushing the franchise in. So yes, I am okay with new things being added into Fallout as long as it fits the established continuity, world building, lore, and storytelling of the non-Bethesda titles. But as I'm concerned, Bethesda does the exact opposite of what I'm looking for in a Fallout work. Also, I will be critiquing the major plot elements, the story, and how well it does both as an adaptation as well as a standalone TV series. But with that out of the way, let's begin with the video, shall we?
I went down to St. James Infirmary.
With this segment, I will be talking about the tone of the Fallout TV show and how it pales in comparison of the non-Bethesda titles. The first game was much darker in tone and had a more foreboding kind of feel. It had a desolate, empty, and melancholy kind of feel. It felt hopeless, but hopeful at the same time. And it had a kind of Mad Max kind of feel to it as well. Also, there were jokes in the first game, but they were blink and you'll miss it Easter eggs, and they were only there to basically loosen up the tension so it wasn't completely deadpan. And with the second game, although yeah, they did go a little overboard with the jokes, it's not entirely the game's fault. It was the development team due to a change in management, as well as it being through development hell and back. But with that, it's still a pretty dark game. Even starts in the intro with the Enclave turning a Volt into Manburger Helper. And even with Fallout New Vegas carrying over a tone similar to Fallout 2, it still manages to be a very serious and mature story, covering topics such as political struggles through conflicting ideologies, enslavement, finding a sense of belonging, letting go of old world ideologies, and finding your faith in a world that seems desolate and hopeless. And although yes, there are jokes in New Vegas, you have to turn them on manually through the Wild Wasteland perk. And then there's also the aspects that people think are jokes but aren't really jokes, such as the Kings, with how they look like Elvis impersonators, but in reality, they are simply tribals who are trying to find a sense of self-belonging. And they saw this man named Elvis, who was beloved by many, who was seen as a god, who was cherished, and they wanted to feel the same. So they emulated him into thinking that, they too will be beloved like he was. And with the Legion, people just see the Roman attire, but they don't see the deeper, darker aspects of it, such as how Edward Solo was a very messed up man, who was also very politically smart. And the thing is, he looked into the Roman Empire to emulate it, and he thought that he was smart enough to break through the inevitable downfall of the Roman Empire, thinking he can make it last longer than how it would realistically last. So essentially, it was his own ego blinding him from the truth. And with that, it kind of goes to show that these things that people think are jokes aren't really jokes at all. In fact, they're pretty straightforward for the most part. And whenever somebody regurgitates the same old tired Fallout is always silly and never serious debate, it always baffles me, and it just highlights their lack of media literacy and how they don't actually look into why the things in the games are the way that they are. The thing is, there's a reason why everything is the way it is. And that's why I love about the older games, because they actually explain why things are the way they are. And when Bethesda bought the franchise, though, they took the superficial aspects, these things that look silly but aren't, and they turned it completely silly as to draw in a more larger audience. Because Bethesda was more concerned about appealing to the larger common denominator rather than appealing to old-time fans. That's why their games are much more sillier in tone and more nonsensical than the older games, the non-Bethesda titles, as you will. Like with Fallout 3, why are there vampires? Why are there people living in a nuclear crater? Why are there superheroes? Why is there a whole DLC dedicated to going to an alien ship and nuking Alaska? Just because. And in Fallout 4, why are there robot pirates and robot detectives? Why is there a theme park for Nuka-Cola? Why are there superheroes again? And why are there people LARPing as the Minutemen? Just because. And in 76, why are there a bunch of things that would be out of place in the Fallout universe normally? And why is there a society that worships a giant moth? Just because, it just never has a reason or point. These things just happen just because. There's no real lore behind it. There's no motivation on why the characters are the way they are when they're doing this stuff. There's no real world logic. It's just nonsensical whimsiness. Like, for sakes, they were going to put witches in the Fallout lore. Like, in Fallout 4, they were gonna have irradiated magical witches. Like, using magical radiation powers, which is so out of place. Like, vampires were out of place enough, but now witches? What the hell? And that is heavily highlighted with Fallout's TV show's tone, with how it takes literally nothing seriously. Whenever there's a moment that's supposed to be serious, it's interrupted with a very bad, cringe millennial humor joke. And it feels more akin to something in the MCU rather than Fallout. The tone of the series is just all over the place, with some moments just being nothing but joke after joke, while the other trying to be deadpan, but gets interrupted with said joke. It's just never consistent. As opposed to the first two games in New Vegas, it had a consistent feel. Even if 2 in New Vegas had slightly sillier elements, it was still pretty grounded in a way, and still had very darker, more mature themes. As opposed to the TV show, which barely has any dark themes, but we'll get into that in the themes category. But as I'm talking about the tone, it doesn't feel like Fallout. Sure, there's a bunch of superficial aspects, like stim packs, like New Vegas, like the NCR, but when you look past all those member berries, there's nothing. It's just a very nothing burger story. Even if you look at it as its own story, it's just very lackluster, and it's pretty much the same thing that you would get in like all the other Bethesda titles, but we'll get into that when we talk about the story as well. Just overall, the tone is just very overly goofy, overly silly, barely any moments that actually take time to breathe. And when there are, they get interrupted later with another stupid joke. And I'm not trying to sound like a doomer when I'm talking about this. I just really don't like what Bethesda is doing with the tone of the series. Like, for instance, with the non-Bethesda games, it used to be 90% serious and mature themes and only 10% jokes. But with the Bethesda games, they flipped it around. So now it's 90% jokes and 10% serious. And the only reason why there were jokes in the original were just to sprinkle it around so it's not completely deadpan. If you want a more deadpan series, then you can play Stalker, you can play Metro, you could play Wasteland. Those are a bit more deadpan and have less jokes in them. But Fallout has jokes just to break up the seriousness so it's not completely moody and doesn't leave the audience with a very depressed feeling. But Bethesda saw this and thought they should just switch it around to attract a much larger audience that would have never cared about it to begin with if it wasn't appealing to the certain millennial crowd. And, when they did this, it worked. And it attracted more people. And eventually they made it to where they're trying to attract modern-day audiences. And a lot of modern-day audiences usually just watch whatever is new, whatever's out, because they want to be hip with the times. They don't really care about if a story's good. They just want to follow the herd. And I know that sounds a little nihilistic, but that's just how it is. They care more about popularity than they do about genuine storytelling and wanting to learn something from what the story's trying to tell them. And Bethesda saw this working with the MCU, with their movies, how they dumbed it down for a larger audience. And so they thought to do the same. And when they saw other companies not giving a as much and not caring as much, they decided to do the same. Because if they don't have to put as much effort into these stories, as long as people are just willing to consume it because of superficial aspects and because it's more suitable for modern audiences, they'll make more money and they won't ever have to try again because they'll just make money off of people's stupidity rather than wanting to make a good story like they used to with the Elder Scrolls series. And the thing is, they were going to make their own original Apocalypse series called Apocalypse Road. But the thing is, they saw the Fallout franchise and how it was selling its rights, and they thought to buy it only for brand recognition. And there are rumors saying that they actually lobbied it, which is even worse. Because, there were other studios willing to buy it, but they didn't buy it. They couldn't because Bethesda had deeper pockets, and they were possibly doing more shady things behind the scenes. I don't have full evidence of this, but I do believe they would do such a thing, though. And so they got the script for their Apocalypse Road idea and just slapped the Fallout brand on it. And that's what Fallout is now. It's just a brand. It's not an intense story with mature themes and topics. It's not a beautiful work of art. It's just a brand, a cold, lifeless, soulless brand that attracts a bunch of media illiterate modern-day audiences to it, just so they can blindly consume and move on. And that's what a tourist is. Someone who joins in just to watch the show or play the Bethesda games and then move on and not care about it anymore. And the Fallout fandom is chock full of tourists. And it's sad because these tourists are the reason why the tone of the Fallout games has dropped significantly, because Bethesda cares more about catering to these people who wouldn't have cared otherwise if it wasn't catered for them, than to care about the actual fans of the games who stuck with them for the years. And when doing some research for this video, I actually found out that the Fallout TV show pretty much ripped the treatment of the canceled 1998 Fallout movie, almost word for word, except instead of the Master being the main villain, it's Voltec and Hank. But the same themes and topics are in this, or at least similar ones. And I made an even deeper discovery from another YouTuber that I follow on here. I found out that the Fallout TV show is just a hard reboot of the original franchise. It's supposed to hard reboot for new fans and blind consumers. The whole, Master and Super Mutants thing in this hard reboot is replaced by Hank and those mind-controlled managers. That's what it is. He's the Master and the managers are the Super Mutants. And that's what the whole thing is supposed to be like. He sees the super managers as the master race that will take over the wasteland, just like the Master saw with Super Mutants. So the Fallout TV show is supposed to hard reset everything to what Bethesda wants the Fallout franchise to be, trying to make that the older games 1 and 2 in New Vegas don't matter anymore, and get rid of what made them so special and replace it with their version. That's why you see a lot of the stuff that you would see in Fallout 4 or 76 in this, rather than the stuff you would see in Vegas. Like the power armors now, the T60, and the West Coast would not have T60 power armor, because that was supposed to be an East Coast only thing, but now the West Coast has T60 power armor. And there's also the Fallout 4 Nuka-Cola bottles, and the Fallout 4 stim packs, and just so on and so forth. Even the rifles, the ones that look like a weird oil tank attached to a blimp for some reason. Like those weird rifles I just hate so much. And even the sounds. There's the Fallout 4 theme that plays when it's supposed to be Vegas. And there's also the Fallout 4 ghoul noises when it should have been the Fallout New Vegas ghoul noises, because they're in Vegas, It's just, I know these are some little things, but the little things matter, because if Bethesda's not going to care about the little things, what makes you think they're going to care about the big things, Like, they haven't even mentioned Hoover Dam, or the Followers of the Apocalypse, or the Platinum Chip, or any major things from New Vegas, or from the original games. They only mentioned their versions because, again, it's supposed to be a hard reboot. They're trying to erase New Vegas 1 and 2. And for the people trying to defend them, saying they're not doing this, please think about it critically and stop blindly following these corporations. They could care less about you. They care more about making money off of you rather than actually caring with what you have to say. These companies do not care. Stop giving them your money, and please think critically. But with all that being said, the tone of the series had made a drastic change from dark and mature to silly and nonsensical, feeling more like a post-apocalypse theme park shooting gallery comedy hour than an actual deep emotional story like the originals. And with that, we should transition to the themes. With this segment, I'll be talking about the themes of the games compared to the show. Now, in the original games, and believe it or not, it was about the of humanity's actions and how it will always find a way to kill itself as long as there's land, materials, or conflicting ideologies. So basically, what it's saying is that war is a inherently human concept, and how we always find reasons to fight in one another. Even when the world has been blown to bits, we always find a reason to fight each other, And that's what it was saying. Even Tim Kaine and other developers of the original games literally said that that was the basic themes of the original games, not capitalism. The only people who were pushing it to be capitalism are Bethesda, which is kind of ironic seeing them being a multi-million-dollar company, but anyways, I find it kind of weird that a multi-billion-dollar company is pushing the idea that capitalism's bad, but communism is good? Like, no, it's not. That's a very weird message to be pushing out, and the only reason you're doing that is to make the Chinese censors happy and, trying to make China not hate you, but it was China who dropped the bombs in the first game. Like, Tim Kaine already said that, as well as other developers of the game. Like, that's kind of been a already established fact. You can say it's the Enclave all you want, but we all know it was China. And those saying it's the Enclave now, well, those are tourists who haven't really played the full games, or they are longtime Bethesda defenders and will defend any kind of mess that Bethesda makes, even if it's lore-breaking. So, But where I think people get the idea that Fallout is inherently about capitalism is through the intro of the first game, where they were showing commercials. Those commercials were literally put there just to give people a sense of normalcy in a time of never-ending war. Like, America's economy was going to the toilet, just going flush down the toilet. So they needed a way to make people feel normal in a time of never-ending war so they don't panic. Because if people start to panic, then that can really tank the economy and America will not be able to win the war. It's more based on a wartime economy rather than capital. They are simply trying to make enough funds so they can keep on fighting this war. The funds are going to the war, not the capital. So that's why there was a commercial for vaults in case things do go wrong. People have a way to, escape the nuclear hellfire before it hits them, and that's through the vaults. And there was also commercial for other things such as a car and Mr. Handy. And when people buy those things, the money will go to the war efforts, will go towards war bonds, and it will help the soldiers on the battlefield and such. They were doing that literally to make people feel at ease. It's similar to what the president did during the September 11th attack, to give a sense of normalcy, but also to inspire people to help the soldiers out on the battlefield. And a lot of the purchases at the time were going towards war efforts. Although some of it did go to capital, but I digress. So that scene was less on capitalism and more on how the state of the United States was during the war and how their economy was flushing down the toilet and they needed the money to help the men and women out on the battlefield to essentially win the resource wars. And they needed as much funds as they could for the vaults because the vaults need the funding from the government, and the money goes to the government, which goes into the vault and the war effort, and it wasn't going to major corporations that control the world like Bethesda's Fallout will make you believe. No, it was going towards the army and going towards Vault Tech, which was working with the army, working with the government. They needed the money to essentially, win the war possibly, but also, fund vaults in case things go to hell. They were doing this literally because of the crappy economy and they needed more push towards the war efforts, not for capital. And the fact that people think that is just baffling to me. And Bethesda did irreversible damage with that, with turning a franchise that was mainly about the horrors of war and the horrors of wartime economy and such like that into capitalism bad, but communism good. It's just, I don't understand why they did that other than to please the Chinese censors and to dumb it down enough to where modern audiences can get into it and enjoy the slop. And whenever you critique the slop for not adapting the source material correctly, they will get mad because they don't like the fact that you're pointing out that the slop they're consuming is slop. And they don't want to admit that it's slop, even though it is. Now, if you like the show, fine, but don't say it's better than what it is. If you're saying it's better than the other Fallouts or it makes sense, no, it doesn't. It's not, there's barely even a story there, which I'll get into later. It's mainly just a string of event after event and not really a full-fledged story. It's just things happen because things happen. And them changing the narrative from war is a scary thing and it's inherently a human feeling. It's inherently a human concept that will always repeat itself as long as there's things to fight over. They turn that into capitalism bad, and it just defeats the whole point of Fallout. And, it's war never changes is literally about how, war will never change. Despite the different factions, despite the different setting, war will always be the same. People will always fight over land, material, or over ideology. That's where war never changes come from, not capitalism. That would be very stupid and not make any sense. Some of you might ask, why is there a credit check in Vegas then? Well, that is a gameplay mechanic to test your skills that you acquired. Now, you can use science and override the skill check, or you can simply just collect enough caps to get in. And the reason why there would be a credit check in the lore is simply because Mr. House is trying to keep the old world economy alive. Like, he wants to save humanity, and he wants to help it progress, and one day reach the stars and find a planet unpolluted by the wrath and folly of bygone generations. But in order to do that, he has to restart the economy again and get it up and running, so then he can help people progress from the ground up, since he's going to have to do that since a lot of the people in the wasteland are tribals. So he's going to have to teach them old ways of living in order to help them progress later on. And a lot of the factions are holding on to old world ideologies that just would not work in the long run. That's what the whole entirety of New Vegas is about. You know, how all these factions have hold on these old world ideologies that they just do not wish to let go of. Despite, you know, us, the player, knowing that it's not going to work in the long run, because we've seen it happen before. The Roman Empire fell, and democracy fell when the bombs dropped, along with Mr. House's ideals as well. And with Yes Man, the world had already been in an anarchy, so we already know that doesn't work. So you basically just have to choose which do you think would last longer, essentially. And that's what's very interesting about New Vegas. Like, a lot of these will fail in their own unique way, and you just gotta see which one would be better and longer running than the other, you know? It was less on capitalism and more on letting go of old world ideologies and trying to progress, you know, instead of holding on to those old world ideologies that have been shown to fail more and more. You know, it's more on progression towards a better future rather than holding on to old world ideologies. You know, like, that's what New Vegas was about, and not capitalism. You know, not capitalism bad and Mr. House is evil, except no, he's not, but we'll get into that. And with the video game mechanic of the credit check, that, like, the thing is, video game mechanics shouldn't always be adapted. That doesn't mean that it's a part of the full world or story. Now, there was slight lore written around it, but it was mainly a gameplay mechanic, you know? And gameplay mechanic does not equal, like, it's a part of the canon world. Like, a stim pack doesn't heal you automatically. It just, you know, it works as a kind of pain med, essentially, you know? Like, it's a pain med, essentially, that over time works, but it wouldn't heal you automatically in real life. It only does in the video game because, well, it's a video game, it's a mechanic. You know, it's supposed to, you know, help. But in the canonical lore, it takes a little longer to help. It's just a pain med, essentially. And, you know, same with how rads work. In real life, you would be severely ill and disgusting and just rot all over if you were even near a few inches of radiation. But in the game, there's the little rads thing that tells you how many rads you're taking, and yet you still look kind of fine. And that's because it's a video game mechanic, you know. It only has its limitations, what it can and cannot do. So, not all video game mechanics equal canon to the universe. Like, you can't freeze time with a Pip-Boy like that. You know, in the canon universe, it just helps target different points, but it wouldn't actually freeze time in real life. It only does in the game to, you know, help stabilize the gameplay a little bit more, you know. But they got rid of that in 76, which I don't know is a W or an L, but anyways, it's essentially just a gameplay mechanic. You know, that's all it really is. It doesn't, you know, equal canon to the universe. What I'm saying with this is that the themes of the games were not really adapted well into the TV show. In fact, they weren't even adapted at all. Nor was the tone from earlier segment. The tone and the themes were not at all accurately adapted into this, what's supposed to be an adaptation. So it feels more like its own thing, like I said earlier, than actual Fallout. It's just a soft, or not soft, but hard reboot of the franchise, trying to reset everything and make it to what Bethesda wants Fallout to be. It's not what Fallout is, it's what they want Fallout to be, to make it more marketable, to make it more appealing to general audiences, as well as tourists who got into the Bethesda games, but not the West Coast games, the non-Bethesda games. But with that being said, what about the story? Is the story well adapted? Let's find out. Now, you're probably wondering, what is the story of the TV show? There is none. Like I said earlier, it's literally just like strains of events that just happen just because. There is no real orchestrated story. But if I were to somehow construct this story, because Bethesda couldn't do it themselves, I can try my best to. I will be covering Season 1 in this episode, though. Season 2 will be covered in the next video, but anyways, let's try to construct this story. So we start off with a pre-war scene for an odd reason. Despite Fallout supposed to be the fallout of humanity, showing what happened after humanity and not really focusing on pre-war stuff, unless if it's Bethesda, who always obsesses over the pre-war for no reason. Anyways, they show a pre-war scene of this washed-up actor called Cooper Howard, and he's doing a little bit of pony tricks for everybody, both figuratively and literally. But then he sees in the distance the nukes went off, which should have blinded him, to be honest, because you should not look directly at a nuclear blast, but whatever. So then they, him and his daughter, Jamie, are going directly towards the explosions. Smart. Anyways, so we start with our Mary Sue, main character, as she just shows off how much of a girl boss she is without struggling at all, showing that she's a strong, independent woman without even struggling, even though what makes a good, strong, independent woman characters is showing that they can struggle and they are human like the rest of us, but I digress. And then we see the other Vault Dwellers being silly and goofy and wacky and talking about incest, which is really weird, especially with the fact that they keep bringing it up every moment they can, which is kind of icky, to be honest. And it's almost as icky as the affectionately called waterfall scene, but we'll get to that road when we do. Anyways, so all the Vault Dwellers being silly and wacky and goofy, and then this woman named Moldaver comes in with her other Vault Dwellers, and they come from another vault, which Hank would have known about, since the experiment he was a part of, the Buds experiment, would have all the overseers from the pre-war be frozen together, so he would have known who he was frozen with and who he wasn't, and he would have questioned this. Later on, we see that they're heavily radioactive, but none of their Geiger counters go off, which should have happened, but whatever. So, yeah, then they all attack the vault because apparently they're raiders. But don't worry, this will be contradicted later, just like a lot of the other plots in this show. Anyways, then Lady Bug Eyes, Lucy, then goes out into the wasteland to find her dad, which has definitely never been done before. So then we meet up back with Cooper Howard, now called the Ghoul, which is weird, because that's like saying Lucy as the human, or Maximus as the human. But that's kind of a broad term because anyone could be a human. So it's kind of weirdly vague for no reason. Anyways, he makes his big, grand, badass entry that's something out of Spawn, the animated series, where he breaks out of a sarcophagus all badass and kills a bunch of guys and makes his way to California. Then we meet with Mr. Mouthagape himself, Maximus, as he's literally the most mentally and emotionally incapable person, constantly having tantrums because he didn't get his way, and harming his friends because, again, he didn't get his way, acting like a complete man-child. But he gets a promotion because of how much of a man-baby he is and how much plot armor he gets. And so he's sent out on a mission with a real knight from the Commonwealth for some reason. That's came from the definitely not Pridwin. Anyways, we then see him and the knight on a mission, but then the knight just wants to randomly shoot stuff for some reason, because that's what the Brotherhood is now. Now they're a bunch of, ultra-religious cultists who hate mutants and once ruled the wasteland, even though in the original they were just, techno-fetishist, isolationists who simply just wanted to preserve technology because they felt that no one else should have the technology, because they feel that the humanity will kill itself again if they have this grand big technology. And now they just threw that away, and now they're just a bunch of military dumb who once ruled the wasteland with an iron fist like the Enclave, but not. Anywho, they then stop into a cave where he gets knocked out by a Yaoguai, and Maximus, has to give a stim pack, but he's gonna tell on everybody. But Maximus, being the terrible person he is, he lets them die and takes his armor. And then he starts being an idiot in the armor and catches up with TKS Mantis. And luckily, he's able to scare away TKS Mantis. Anyways, then he goes on towards Philly, which is where the Fent zombie, the ghoul, is making its way to. And also Lucy is, because it's not a story, it's an event that has, all the characters just meet up there just because, and not, any natural reason. We also get a scene where the Enclave, which shouldn't be alive if they are the West Coast variant, since the West Coast Enclave was mostly killed off, and only left with the remnants that you see in New Vegas. And if this is the East Coast Enclave, they should also be dead, because in Fallout 3, the only choice you're allowed to make, since Bethesda doesn't want you having morally gray choices, they only want you to have black and white choices because they don't know how to write stories with their keep it simple stupid method. The Enclave in the East Coast should be dead because, you destroyed their base and everything. And they're not even a thing in Fallout 4, and barely a thing in 76, unless you count that weird, add-on stuff, which add-ons aren't really canon, so... the Enclave is, for some reason, alive, and this Enclave scientist named Wilzig has this MacGuffin, which he puts into his neck and runs away, and definitely does not get shredded up by turrets, even though he should. But anyways, him and Dogmeat, they have a godly amount of plot immunity, well, till later, but we'll get to that point. And he meets in the place where Maximus and the Knight will meet later. Anyways, he then runs away when he sees a bad roach and heads towards Philly, where Lucy is. And the thing is, he comes to Lucy, and Lucy has to escort him to a observatory. But as a fight breaks out against Maximus and the Fent Zombie, and the Fent Zombie basically retconning ghoul lore, saying, oh, now they're superpowered humans who can take as many shots as they want and are pretty much invincible unless you shoot them in the head and, shoot them while they're feral, which is weird. Anyways, as the fight breaks out, Lucy and Wilzig then head off into the desert, only for Wilzig to make it halfway, and he stops, talks about how evil Voltex is, and then he dies, and Lucy, being the goody two-shoes vault dweller she is, decides to cut his head off barbarically, instead of, not do that, because a goody two-shoes vault dweller would not do that, but whatever. She just doesn't question the idea that she cut a man's head off, and goes find the observatory, and as she heads into the flooded ruins of LA, then a Gulper, which shouldn't even be in the West Coast, but whatever, eats the head that had the MacGuffin inside of it, and, she's hopeless, not sure what to do. Then Fent Zombie, coming back from the fight, is able to help her by almost drowning her in irradiated water to try to fish it back, and now she's heavily irradiated, and she's forced to be taken to a super duper mart to get some yummy gummy fluid for the ghoul because he's turning feral, because apparently ghouls now need to drink this magical serum that didn't exist in any of the games ever to not go feral for some reason, which is really bizarre.
Then they make it to the Super Duper Mart. Lucy gets a new finger after getting her old finger cut off by the ghoul because he got pissed that, she got his finger broke off. And she gets a new infected, disgusting finger that should have given her shock and would have infected her body even more and killed her. But whatever, this show has no logic at all. And it turns out that the robot's actually cartoonishly evil, and she gets out of there. And she takes out the very, very, very stoned idiots on the couch who have no reason for being there, and there's no reason why they act the way they do, but whatever. She lets out a bunch of feral ghouls, which act like Walking Dead zombies, instead of, actual people that just happen to have dementia, basically, because that's what feralization is. It's just a more advanced form of dementia, and instead of acting like animals, they act like Walking Dead zombies that can get shot in the head and gets them killed. But luckily, the ghoul is let inside, and he gets all of his yummy gummy juice and remembers a flashback of how evil Voltec really is. And he decides to fall for communist propaganda instead of, listening to his wife. He spies on her and falls for communism because communism good now, guys. And as we watch this, I just have to sit there and think, why are we supposed to like it? Anyways, and then we cut back to Maximus, who's stuck in his power armor because it got it broken, and a bunch of raiders push him out of it, but luckily he's able to kill them with it. And the Brotherhood are sending a new recruit because they found out that the power armor is away from base and wondering what happened. And then he lies about being Knight Titus when he could have just told the truth and they would have understood, but whatever. So then one of the bullies that was bullying Maximus earlier, Thaddeus, he comes in, and him and Maximus are walking through the wasteland, and they're trying to find where the MacGuffin is. So they use a radiation scanner, which wouldn't fucking work because it's a nuclear apocalypse with a crap ton of radiation everywhere. But regardless, they somehow find the head through the sea of radiation around them, and they follow it. They then go into LA, kill the Gulper from earlier, steal the MacGuffin head, have some bro time, but then it turns out that Titus is actually Maximus, and Maximus doesn't like being told no since Thaddeus is about to tell on him, so he tries to kill him, and he luckily gets away with Maximus's power core, but why are we supposed to like Maximus? He's literally attempting murder because somebody's going to tell on him for impersonating a knight. And rightfully so, but whatever. We have to side with Maximus because he's the hero, even though he's done nothing really heroic. But anyways, without the power core, Maximus is stuck in his suit being attacked by radroaches until Deus Ex Machina, Lucy, comes in to save the day. But, oh no, she's heavily irradiated, if someone had Radaway. So then Maximus has Radaway and gives it to her, because the solution to their problems will always be there and they can never learn anything, and they always have to be perpetual little Gary Stu and Mary Sue puppets for the writers of the show to just puppeteer around it and act different member berries instead of wanting to make an actually good narrative story. Because none of these quote-unquote characters are real characters. They're basically just glorified plot devices. Lucy and Maximus then come across some fiends who don't look like fiends. They make it to the Shady Sands crater, which is completely stupid. That would have never happened due to how Shady Sands has many outposts that would have stopped the nuke from coming in, and they would have had bomb squads too on the sideline to, disable the bomb. And, there would have been many precautions to stop the bomb from coming in. And I'm not even going to talk about the stupidity of how the bomb even came in the first place until the next review. But what you gotta know is it's completely stupid and makes no sense in the lore of Fallout. Nuking that whole area wouldn't have stopped the NCR from happening. That would have just been a major inconvenience, but that's it. You know, it's like when Japan got nuked in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that didn't stop Japan from being a country. That didn't stop them from existing. It might have hurt a little bit, but it didn't stop Japan. There were still other towns. There were still other, cities and other communities. That wouldn't have stopped them. There were multiple capitals too. So that wouldn't, have stopped the NCR from existing. But I digress. Anyways, they then make it to a vault full of weird and wacky mutants and Shady Sands refugees, who we later find out are a part of this weird blood orgy cult who basically worship Moldaver, the woman for earlier who shot up Lucy's vault and stole Hank McClane, and is, now seen as a goddess, even though she was literally shooting up the vault from earlier, and now she's a goddess. But then we later find out in the story that she's actually a good guy, and she was the good communist, saying communism good, and she's doing it for renewable energy and her lesbian girlfriend, which makes no sense at all. But anyways, Lucy finds this out, thinks it's messed up, but they're so misunderstood, and they try to do an execution thing, but, it's just a stupid MCU joke. Maximus comes in a full-on, roid rage, beating people up, and proving that he's even more of an unlikable character. And then, they get kicked out. They then make their way to the observatory, but then bump into Thaddeus, who got weird juice from TKS Mantis, and is now a ghoul, except no, he's not. He's something else. You know what he is? He's what Bethesda wants him to be, because Bethesda now owns Fallout, and they can do whatever they want. They can make him a pink, weird unicorn for all we care. Anyways, and then his trusted bestie, Dane, who he literally harmed earlier because he got pissed that he didn't get what he had, but I digress, vows for him, and they basically went out to go to the observatory where they have a big, grand battle of Brotherhood versus NCR, which is very anticlimactic. And then Fent Zombie makes his way there and says some very stupid lore-breaking crap, shooting the weak point that was never in the games at all. But, and then we also have some flashback scenes saying, oh, it was Voltec that dropped the bombs, even though they didn't. And that point later gets retconned in the next season, but we'll get into that in the next video. Anyways, so then Fent Zombie then tweaks the hell out and takes out an entire fleet of Brotherhood troops with just a stupid-looking gun. And then he shoots his way to the top, where Lucy is, where she's confronting her dad, who's actually evil the whole time, because corporations evil, guys. The corporations want to destroy the world and blow the world up, even though that's not how capitalism works. They want to prevent war. Sure, they monetize off war sometimes, but they mainly want to prevent it because they want to keep their customers alive. They want to keep the people giving them money alive so they can make more money. To destroy all their customers and all their competition to make no money at all in the wasteland, because most money would be burnt up and so will the people, that just makes no sense. Like, getting rid of the competition and stuff, congratulations. You are not going to make money at all and nothing even matters. But anyways, then Maximus comes in and he accidentally helps her father break out, and he shoots Maximus, and then he takes some power armor that walked its way in there for some reason, which is just, the plot happening because it has to happen, and not because it feels natural, and he just steals the power armor, and Fent Zombie tries to have a confrontation with him, but then he leaves before they can do anything. Lucy puts her lesbian zombie mother out of her misery, and, they then go after Hank, and basically setting up the next season. Then the Brotherhood, who didn't get shot by the ghoul, basically come in, and they're saying, oh, Maximus, you did it, even though you didn't do anything, you're laying on the f***ing floor, you did it, you brought power to the wasteland, and they use the MacGuffin, and it powers the entirety of LA, even though that wouldn't even work, because most of the power would have been shot or destroyed. And when I say shot, I mean shot out because of the bombs. Anywho, Then they have a big little celebration saying, "Oh, you did it!" And if you're wondering how the ghoul got there to the observatory, he was found in the Super Duper Mart by a new faction that's never been in the games before called the Government, and they're basically like a replacement for the NCR. But they're easy to kill because he kills his way out of there, and then he makes his way to a random family, which do a quick member berry of the New Vegas Ranger. And might I say, the costume looks more like something you would get from Party City rather than an official TV show on Amazon. But then he interrogates the family, kills them, and then makes his way to the observatory. So all that was just a nothing burger, just pure filler. Also, I forgot to mention, Moldaver dies in the observatory. And then we have a setup for the next season, where Hank is found crushing a Deathclaw skull in front of what used to be New Vegas. You're probably wondering why I didn't talk about the vault scenes, or the scenes with Norm. It's all filler that doesn't matter at all, and it's so disconnected from the story that it's not even worth talking about. They're just different segments that barely even come together. And like I said earlier, in the Vault Dweller scene, that's where the infamous waterfall happens, which is just the directors hammering in their weird fetishes for some reason. That and the constant incest jokes that just really come off jarring more than they are funny. Like, I just sat there cringing the whole time. Cause is this what people think is funny now? Incest jokes and giving birth on the floor? That is disgusting. You know? And you guys need to raise your standards. Like, Bethesda and Amazon are trying to get you to lower your standards for entertainment so you can give them more money. They're trying to dumb you down. You need to keep your standards high and tell them what you want with storytelling, with show direction and all that, with world building, with character development. You need to be high of standards, and you shouldn't have to lower your standards to enjoy a certain piece of media. It's always good to critically think about the shows you're watching or the books you read or any kind of media you consume. It's always good to critically think about things than to not think at all and just blindly consume. Because when you blindly consume, all you are doing is paying these people to be lazy and to be effortless with stories, to just dumb down generations until we're all just mindless pay pigs for larger corporations to make money off of our stupidity. You have to be constantly critically thinking about the media you consume, because when you're critically thinking, you have higher standards, and you're telling them that you want more greater stories to engage with, and the media we consume is literally effective to how we see the world, how we perceive things and such. That's why it's important that we always think about the media and if it makes sense or not, and to think about the themes, topics, and tones they're trying to establish, so then we can use it either as a warning of what could happen to our society or how to progress our society to a better and more greater amount of standards, so we can be a functioning society. So it definitely affects how we see the world, how our politics work, because if we're all dumbed down, then they just have much more advantage over us and our media, and we will be treated as nothing but mindless pay pigs, like I said before. But when you're thinking, then they'll make stuff that actually challenges our character and our motives and our world way of thinking, which helps us engage with it better, create a better sense of community, and helps us see the world in a much more more thought-provoking light, which actually helps us get through enlightenments in human history, which then lead up to great advancements and progression. We as a species are designed to think, and when we use our minds, we're doing what nature intended. and even better, and we can get pushed into better progressions with our society and get into better innovations. But when we don't think, we're going against our nature, and we are essentially going to regress as a species back to essentially the Stone Age, and that's not good. So instead of blindly consuming product, we need to be more vocal with what we want as a society, what we want in our media, and want for better stories, so we can create better, brighter communities and have much better innovations and be more enlightened and have much more to offer as a society, So after this video, when it's over, I want you all to make videos of your own. They can be as long as this or maybe shorter, and just talk about what you did not like about the Fallout show, what you would want to change, and just talk about how you want the media you consume to change, and talk about how you want to higher standards of the media we consume, so we can progress as a species and get to the point where we need to go, instead of being mindless pay pigs for the greedy corporations on top. We cannot let them win over us. So we need to make as much videos as we can to show that we still care about good stories, and we still care about consistency and continuity and all that. And we just want consistently good stories and quality storytelling, world building, characters, and all that. We want good quality media again. But yeah, and then back to what I was saying earlier, though. Sorry about that political rant. But there was also the Norm subplot, which was stupid because it was just him finding out about the evils of Vault-Tec because they're evil. And yeah, they were evil in the original games, but not as cartoonishly evil as this. So, and then he also finds the evil lord of the operation, which is just a Roomba with a brain in it, and he's somehow threatened by it and forced to go into a pod. He doesn't do that, though, as we'll see in the next season. But he's just completely useless, completely just stupid as a character. In fact, most of the characters in this either make very irrational, dumb choices, or, some of them just go off of impulse rather than logic or reason, and end up doing something completely stupid and illogical, which, they get no consequences for because they are able to get out of it because of the plot armor that they have. So no one and nothing progresses, everything is stagnant, all the characters are the same and never learn, and they never develop, and, everything just gets worse and worse. They kill off legacy factions, turn them into former shells of themselves, and the ones they don't kill, they just find a way to make as most simplistic as possible until there's nothing recognizable about them, and they're just an entirely different thing. And, now there were good things about the show, like, the sets were alright, and some of the props were pretty cool, and some of the music was fine. Not the oldies music, but like the, soundtrack they had in the background. But other than that, it's just, there's not really much to like about the show. All it is just mindless consumer slop made to lower your standards so they can make money off your stupidity. That's all it really is. And, it's like, it's fine if you enjoy it, whatever, but just don't act like it's better than what it is. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about the lore, since that's a part of story. So, the lore gets retconned to high hell, like, the Shady Sands gets nuked in the same timeline of event of when Fallout New Vegas happens. Now, despite what Todd Howard will say, they later confirmed that yes, it got nuked during the same time as New Vegas, and they like double down on it and all that. So yes, it did get nuked at the same time as New Vegas, which is weird because they talked about it not happening in New Vegas, and Shady Sands is perfectly fine. And then there's also ghouls needing yummy gummy fluid to not be feral, and they could be invincible superhumans, but only when they're important to the story. If they're not, then they can easily die, and they're just Walking Dead zombies, or, just caricatures of ghouls who are just made for the ghoul, Cooper Howard, to just eat, because apparently he's cannibalistic. Because they want to say that he's morally great. No, he's just a terrible person all around. There's no way to say it. He's just a terrible person. And then Sinclair gets retconned to be a fat, white, old dude instead of the handsome gentleman that he was in the Dead Money DLC. And saying that he's all in for destroying the world and torturing people, even though he wouldn't do that. He was a tragic character who just wanted to do something for his beloved who didn't fully love him herself, It was a very melancholy story, and the fact that they turned this man into nothing but a joke, it's aggravating. And another retcon with Shady Sands is that it's now where the Boneyard should be, in LA. And you know who else was in LA? The Master, which would have meant that the Master would have turned the people of Shady Sands into super mutants. And he would have turned the Vault Dwellers in Vaults 31, 32, and 33 into super mutants, because they're wide in the open. They're like wide out in the open, and that would have been easily accessible, and all the people in the vaults would have been kidnapped. Well, like we just established, the Master doesn't exist in this continuity anymore, neither do the mutants, unless if they're the ones that are from Fallout 4 and 76. So, the mutants from the Mariposa base are no longer existent, and neither is Mariposa. It doesn't exist anymore, since this is a hard reboot. And Voltec is now, Mariposa, and Hank is now the Master, and the super managers are now the super mutants, and, so on and so forth. And just Bethesda's whole lack of misunderstanding of geography and where things were in the original games, and how, they just do not care. They just look at the wiki page, or watch a quick Oxhorn video, and then they put that into the show. It doesn't seem like they do their actual research. They just look at their wiki, take whatever information they can, and then just slap it there. Some people even hypothesize that they use AI to help write it. And I wouldn't, be opposed to that theory, because it seems like it. This seems like a very AI-written show. And a lot of this, like I said earlier, is just ripped straight from the treatment of the Fallout 1998 movie that never was made. So they're committing plagiarism. So they didn't have a single kind of original idea with this. It's all just regurgitated nonsense that you've seen before. And it's just plot point after plot point that has already been done to death. And it's not even an entire story. It's just strings of events happening because they have to happen, and characters meeting up with each other unnaturally because they need the plot to progress somehow. So, overall, this show is not worth the watch. If you're a Fallout fan, stick with Nuka Break on YouTube. Nuka Break is a much more faithful adaptation of the Fallout source material than the actual Season 1 of the show itself, because at least that one actually adapts the source material correctly. And the Fallout TV show, made by Amazon, a literal mega corporation, is the least accurate, because the tones, the themes, the overall story is not accurate to any of the Fallout games other than 4 and 76. It's not accurate to the older games, or New Vegas, or any of them. It's more close to 476. Or hell, it doesn't even feel like that, because it's way too goofy and way too, cringeworthy to even be considered the same tone and themes. So no, it doesn't really adapt any of the games at all. In fact, all it is just shallow, surface-level themes and topics, as well as superficial aspects like power armor and, like stim packs and Nuka-Cola and Volt Boy just jingling around to get your attention, to get you to forget how terrible the story, or lack thereof, just truly is, and trying to shove superficial aspects in your face, trying to, hold on to your nostalgia and get you to hopefully clap like a lobotomized seal because you see things that you recognize. They're using nostalgia as a weapon against your own intelligence, and they're trying to get you to not think critically or to build up higher standards. They're using this nostalgia to say, hey, remember this, jingle, jingle, jingle. Look, Volt Boy and Death Claws and Super Mutants and Enclave, you remember that, right? It's all it is. It's just straight up member berries, barely even holding together a nothing burger of a plot, just a bunch of events stringed together through dumb, deprived bull. And, that's all it really is. I love Fallout. I love the first 2 games in New Vegas. And I think that they are great games that deserve a lot more respect and a lot more dignity than what this show attempts to give. Or, no, attempts is too good of a word. Barely even gives. They just didn't try with this at all. And you can see that. They had a tiny, teensy little effort, but that's the bare minimum of making an adaptation. So, overall, 0 out of 10. Not a good show. I do not like it. And Season 2, oh boy, Season 2 gets worse. But you'll have to see in the next video. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this almost full hour-long video. Please share it with your friends if you agree, if you enjoyed. Leave a comment as long as it's civil. And, leave a like. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Now I'm able to pay my cable.